well, this is a couple month project in the works, but I just started a dojo, and it's in my front yard. I built
Oh,
a 1,200 square foot metal building and got 800 square foot of mat, and
okay.
yesterday was the third class. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah,
I
it's
wish you
been a
luck, my friend.
thank you. It's been a work in the process. It's I took some time and looked into retail space, and for 6 months I'm talking to people, I'm watching videos on how to start a business. I talked to Skylar Cummings, who I think I talked
Yep.
to Colton a little bit, and just tried to just weigh my options. And I didn't want to get too far into a big gigantic financial project where I'm dumping like all of our life savings and stuff into it. So I decided to go this way, and man, it's a lot cheaper, and it's on our property, and it's our building, and it brings the home value up. And man, like, it's expensive to try to rent the space.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
So
people don't look at all the little costs, you know. It's the little stuff you don't
yeah,
think about.
so this is
You know,
probably
everybody thinks about the big things.
no, this is probably a third. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I looked into retail space, and if I wanted, I needed at least 1,000 square feet. So I looked all over I'm in North Carolina. I looked in the Charlotte area. I looked in the surrounding area. I even went over into South Carolina, into
Hmm.
Lancaster County, and I mean, $1,500 minimum for rent. For an absolute minimum. And as I'm teaching myself this and doing research, I find out that the tenants are responsible for 100% of the renovations, and if the air conditioner goes out, the tenant has to buy it, and all this stuff. And man, so I'm like, okay, let's look at a new space. Minimum $3,000 a month, and I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. So, so this is the route I went. So, but we're small, we'll be small, but man, I'm telling you, it's
That's
nice walking out the front door and
that's
there's a
all right.
dojo.
Like I said, it's a good thing, you know, and you get a lot of joy out of helping the people out and the kids and the adults. So, like I said, I wish you
Thank you.
luck, man. It's a good journey to
Thank you so
start.
much. Well, I mean, I've already been recording, so it's all good. But I added all this stuff, so no worries. But you know, welcome everybody. This is the Well Rounded Grappler. I have a special guest today, and Sensei Brown. Maybe people might not know you as an individual, but they might know a close family member of yours. So if you want to just give us a little introduction. Tell us about yourself,
Sure.
your rank, and then if anybody out there might know one of your family members.
Oh yeah, right. So I'm the proud father of Colton Brown, two-time Olympian. Currently owns Colton Brown Training Center out of Warren, New Jersey. Um, you know, I'm a second degree black belt. I've been playing judo now since I was about 14 years old. I started out at I'm currently 66. So I started out at Cranford Judo and Karate in Cranford, New Jersey, under Sensei UNESCO, and kind of went there for years, and then got married. You know, Colton was my first child, so you know, I used to help out with the kids class down at Cranford Judo. So he started hanging out with me, going down there, and then just kind of liked the whole grappling. And every day I'd come home from work, I'd walk in the door, he'd try to double leg take me down when he was about 4 years old. So he was, I used to call him a grabby kid. He used to grab a lot. So
Yeah.
just kind of naturally fell into judo. You know,
Hmm. Yeah, that's
you know.
awesome. Yeah. If people, listen to some of my other interviews, I was just up at Colton Brown's facility a couple months ago, and I interviewed Colton and did a little tour of the facility. That stuff is on YouTube, and then the interviews on YouTube and Spotify. But I ran into you that first day, and I hope you remember me.
Yes, I did.
I had come in and shook your hand, and just sometimes you meet people, and you kind of just absorb their radiant energy, and just your positive, welcoming manner. Just it just made me smile, and I'm just like, man, I really like Jeff a lot, and
That's
and
good.
that's a good quality, So, do you remember our brief talk when I came up there?
Yeah, I remember looking over because I was teaching the kids class, and I'm always kind of looking out because there's people that come in that are interested in the programs and things like that. But I don't like to walk away from the kids class. I'll kind of let them hang out there for a while before I go over, and usually after class or something. But I remember you. I remember you sitting down there, and we talked for a minute. And but like I said, I love the sport and the people I meet from the sport. A majority of the people I meet from judo are really good people. I don't know
Yeah.
how the sport just attracts those people, but very rarely do I meet someone in our judo community that is not a kind of an upright, good person.
Yeah, right. I know I experienced the same thing. This is year 25 for me. I started as a teenager as well. I was 17, and I just turned 43.
Okay.
But I was involved in coaching wrestling, and sometimes over the years I'm either very heavy into judo, or I might just pop in once every couple months. But it doesn't seem like I've gone longer than probably 6 months to where I haven't been on the judo mat at one point, in that 25 years. But, the cool thing is that I'm on the mat more and making connections more and training more and especially teaching more than I ever have. And, you know, and we could get into this, but you've been in judo, 50 years basically, and when you're younger, you love the randori, you love going real hard, you love um, basically like doing everything you can to get that ippon, and I'm starting to get away from that. I like teaching the
Right.
art. I like showing moves. I like being able to break the moves down slowly and be able to demonstrate, the different parts of judo while I'm balanced, because that's a whole other aspect of the game too, is demonstrating and be able to kazushi and fit in and be able to hold yourself there in a balanced position while you talk, and then turn and then nice and easily throw. That's a skill all in its own. But I've kind of transitioned into that, and because of that, I can be on the mat more often because I'm not going hard all the time. I would go 150%, and then I would need a day off because I was just so sore and beat up. I mean, as you've kind of went through your journey, did you ever kind of feel that shift to where you're like, man, I don't like going hard all the time anymore. I just kind of want to lay back and just kind of teach now. This episode is sponsored by Danro Judo. Danro Judo is a trademark with decades of tradition and experience in the development and production of high-quality martial arts gear. Founded in 1936 and becoming part of Quan in 1997, Quan USA is the exclusive and official Danro dealer in the country. Danro carries products that are International Judo Federation recognized for the highest competitors in the sport and is the ideal gi for training and competition. Danro products are available for sale online at www.danrousa.com. Danro is DANRHOUSA, and arrive to most places in the U.S. within 3 to 4 business days. Also, as of right now, I am a wholesaler for Quan USA and Danro. From now until the end of January 2026, you can get 25% off of all Judo products on danrousa.com if you use the code COLE25. That's COLE, COLE, the number 25. If you enter this at checkout, you're going to get 25% off. If this is beyond January 2026, you can contact me directly, Cole Stanley, and I can get you 10% off of anything in the martial arts catalog for Danro and QuanUSA.com. Thank you.
Yeah, it's new for me, right? Because when I played, I came from a school. Cranford was known for their competitors. So UNESCO was Olympic team coach. We had multiple Olympians at our school. So Ronduri was a war. And when, like you say, when you're young, it's good, right? You've got that energy. You're flexible. You're strong. Then so it's fun. It's a lot of fun down there. You're going head to head with guys and battling with guys, and afterwards you're the camaraderie is there. But then obviously you get older, you have kids, you don't play as much. Then when you do play, you get banged up. You need a few days off. So I kind of went through that transition. And my son helped me go through that transition, actually, because once he got about 12, 13 years old, I started working with him more, so we would go out in the backyard, things like that. So he kind of let me know. And then, it was one of those things where I don't know how old you have children. You have a 2-year-old. All right. So it's always kind of weird and good when you got a kid that's training hard and he starts getting 12, 13, 14, 15.
Right.
Now all of a sudden he's challenging you. Right. And, I remember clear as day, my kid went away to college and came home and said, "Come on, Dad, let's play. Let's go in the backyard like we used to do. Let's play." And I knew his judo really well, And so I figured, all right, I kind of know his judo pretty good. I should be able to at least stop him. And it took about a couple minutes, and then I realized that he was at a different level. So as he hit me with his Sasai, and I'm kind of going through the air,
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, all right, we're good.
As I've
but
kind of got used to the area because I'm from Illinois, so most of my judo was in the Chicagoland area, and as I've moved to the East Coast and kind of made connections and looked into history and hear names, Cranford Judo comes up quite a bit as a very tough judo club with some history behind it. So originally, when you were 14, that's the club that you started with?
Yes. Yeah, I used to live maybe about 2 or 3 miles away. So I would ride my bike. I grew up in Westfield, and Cranford. Well, Cranford was like the next town over. So I'd get on my bike. I wrestled through school. So judo was a natural, just kind of moving on from wrestling onto judo.
Yeah.
So, Cranford, and like I said, when I went, you had really good guys at that time. So, you were definitely going with the top guys in the country back in those days.
Yeah.
Sensei UNESCO, God rest his soul, has passed away. So school is not what it used to be, but it's still a strong school.
And that's Jack UNESCO. Is that his son?
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah. Jack is actually Sensei UNESCO's
Grandson.
grandson.
Okay.
So yeah, he's Nikki's
Okay.
son. So but like I said, Jack is obviously one of the best players we've got right now
Yeah.
in the country, and probably one of the hardest workers I've ever
Mm-hmm.
seen.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely got his grandfather's work ethic
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that's neat. Because you get into some of these pockets of judo in the United States. Like, and I mean, when I started in 2000, I mean, obviously the internet wasn't the same as what it is now, and I was just more of a regional competitor. No point tournaments. I don't think that I can remember anyway. But it was, a couple state championships I would enter. But I also didn't have very much money, so we didn't really travel very far. And maybe every once in a while we would get somebody that comes to a
Right.
tournament, and I'd talk to them, and they're like, "Well, I'm here from New York or whatever." I'm like, "Oh, cool." So, but I didn't really know too much outside of there. Then when I moved out to Arizona,
Mhm.
I think California judo is probably the best in the country as far as just the average judo competitor. So my skills were forced to get better because I was facing some of these higher caliber people out
Right.
there. And now that I'm out here, kind of like that upper East Coast, the California, New Jersey, maybe even Connecticut. It seems like those are kind of the hotbeds for judo in the United States, and it's cool. And like you were saying, as far as the welcoming, the nice individuals, man, I don't even know if I've been to a judo club that I wasn't extremely welcomed, that people weren't, that were nice to me. It's a really cool community, so I get what you're saying completely, you know. So so if you've been in 50 years, did you take some time off? Because you said you were a second degree black belt.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I probably played the majority of my judo was when, like I said, when I was right around 14 years old, 14, 15 to probably around 35. I was
Okay.
competing at, regional tournaments. There was a lot of tournaments in New York, Philadelphia area. So I would go into those tournaments a lot of times. And after that, I started a business, and then I had children, and then I didn't go as much. I would still go, like once a week. My father owned a liquor store and a bar. So, I used to work in the bar, and it was in a tough area in Elizabeth down the port. So I would go to judo, not mainly for just sport, but just to keep myself physically fit and kind of ready, being in that environment. So I always kept myself from through boxing, through judo, through wrestling, always wanted to kind of be ready, just in case, kind of. Yeah, no, I would go like after Colton was born. Yanni, the instructor at Cranford, wanted me to come and help out. So I would go like 2 times a week, help out with the kids' class. And then, like I said, I couldn't walk in the house without Colton grabbing me or, just trying to wrestle me all the time. And then I took him down to judo. When I took him down there, he really liked it. I mean, he was always self motivated. I never had to. I mean, so originally, this is the story. He We come from a town, Piscataway, New Jersey. A lot of athletes in that town, right? A lot of guys go D1, a lot of guys go pro, basketball, football, things like that. So he was probably one of the least athletic of all his friends. All right. And they all played Pop Warner football and things like that. And he went out for basketball. They had a AAU tryout. And there must have been about 100 kids out there that day I took him. And they had like spots for like 10 or 12 kids. That was it. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching and I'm like, man, there's no way. I see kids that are really good, you know? So anyway, they got like a 3-day tryout, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday they were going to pick the team. And they said, okay, we're going to call you by 6 o'clock in the afternoon. If we don't call you by 6 o'clock, you didn't make the team. So I watch him and he's sitting by the phone and he keeps picking the phone up, checking the phone to see if the phone was working, right? Landline phone, right? Obviously. And 6 o'clock comes, 6 o'clock goes, and he didn't get the call. So he knew he didn't make the team. So next day I come home from work and I see him sitting on the couch, kind of like eating like chips or something. So I go, okay, you know, you didn't make the basketball team. What are you going to do? And he goes, I don't know. And I go, well, why don't you come to judo with me? And he goes, well, judo's not my sport. And I go, well, basketball ain't your sport, right? Because you didn't make the team, right? So I said, get your stuff together. Let's go. And that was like the start of it. And he went down to judo. And then he just, you know, sometimes he wouldn't want to go. And I'm like, come on, just go. And eventually he was calling me to go. Like, come on, Dad. And I'm like, nah, I don't feel like going today. No. Come on, Dad, let's go. So he went, you know, once he got into it, he really liked it. And that was kind of the start. So the start of his judo career was he wasn't good enough to make that basketball team. And that kind of led him down the road for judo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, one thing that I brought up with Colton, and I'm not sure if you listened to our interview or whatnot that I had with Colton. I've actually had him on the podcast twice. So I believe this was after he had finished his college career at San Jose State, and he wanted to, just get better and maybe make an Olympic team. And he said that he came home and he said that, Dad, I want you to work with me. And again, this is maybe an improvisation. So you fix whatever I'm not saying that's accurate.
Sure.
And he said, Dad, I want you, to help me get to the next level. And you're like, okay, that means we're going back to the basics. So do you remember kind of this conversation that you guys had? And then what did you mean? Because I wanted to ask, because whenever you get a player, and it doesn't have to be Colton, it's anybody that's been working with such high caliber athletes, a way higher level than you or I had ever been with before, and then they come back and they have all this vast knowledge, but then they want you to teach them, and you just want to go back to the basics. It's interesting. So kind of walk us through that story and what you meant and what was some of the stuff you guys worked on.
Yeah, so what happened was this. So as he was coming up, right, I was working with him. Right, we would go out in the backyard, we'd go out, the Votech was close to our house, and they had a soccer field out there. So we go out a couple times a week and we work out in the soccer field. And my goal was, I knew he was going away to college. I knew the guys there knew more judo than I knew. So my goal was to give that college a solid athlete, somebody not beat up, somebody not, burned out. Sometimes the parents just push their kids hard, and it's just, they're doing too much. And so when I handed him off to San Jose, and like you had mentioned earlier, I love West Coast judo. I think they got clean judo out there. It was beautiful judo. So when I handed him off there, he took to that program well. And they all lived in the judo house together, all the athletes, and it was a great camaraderie amongst the athletes. When he was at Cranford, he was like maybe one of the only guys competing. So we would go to tournaments and we'd travel around the tournaments. And that's how me and him became very close, because we'd go to tournaments. We'd leave the house on a Friday and weigh-ins would be Saturday. And we'd stay in a hotel and, really bond. So it was good for our relationship. And I never wanted to push him too hard to ruin that relationship. So I send him out to San Jose. His judo got better. He got stronger. He got tougher. There were more competitors out there that were really going head to head with him, which made him better. And then he went to Rio, to the Olympics, did okay. But with San Jose, they would start and stop. Like when school was on, practice would be all the time. During break periods, there'd be no practice. So it was tough for him, right? So eventually we said, all right, we're going to move you up to Boston. I'm going to send you up to Jimmy Pedro's. He's the guy. We feel as though, we had an issue with gripping. And I remember looking at his matches and saying, man, against righties, out of 10 fights, you won 8. Right? But against lefties, out of 10 fights, you only won 6, right? So we need to work on your gripping. And Jimmy is incredible at gripping, right? So we send him up to Pedro's, and he stays up there for maybe 2 years or so, I think it was. And he was in a competition in Japan. And he was having a tough time. And I think it was a point where he kind of like hit a wall. And he didn't feel as though he was getting better. He was so concentrated on his gripping. He wasn't throwing. He'd win matches on Cheetos and things like that. But he got away from really the big throws, which he used to be good at. So he calls me. He didn't do well in that tournament. He calls me. It's about 4 a.m. or whatever it is. Fan time. He goes, Dad, I'm just done. He goes, I want to come home and I want you to train me. And when you have a kid that says that to you, right, you really, hey man, I feel for you. So come on, we're going to do what we got to do. Yeah. So now he comes home and I got to try to put together something that he's not going to go backwards now.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
So my goal was, I said, all right, we're going to concentrate on 6 throws. We're going to concentrate on 6 throws, 1 in each direction. And I'm going to use 3 different grips. And each throw, we're going to do from 3 grips. So we drilled. Some days we wake up every morning. I got some mats for my garage. I got a throwing dummy. So I kind of set ourselves up for that. I was the dummy most of the time. I'd position myself against the wall, and I'd have him do power fit-ins. And as he's pulling me over, I'd use my one back leg to stop myself from going over. And we just worked and we just drilled those 6 throws over and over and over. And then what would happen, we'd go to randuri at night. We had certain days that we did randuri. And some of those days meant we'd hit 3 schools that day. So we'd go to Cranford first. Let's just say their practice from 6:30 to 7:30. And we just show up for randuri. No uchikomi, no nothing. Yeah. Just walk in right where randuri was starting. Yeah. We'd leave there. We'd go up to North Bergen, up to Clyde's school. And we'd play randuri there after Cranford. And then sometimes we'd go right to New York, NYAC. So he'd get 3 different randuris.
Wow.
In one night. And the goal was to find someone to throw them.
Yeah, sure.
Because the biggest problem we had was, he's fighting guys here, and then he'd go over to Europe, and the guys are 20, 30% stronger than the guys here. So my goal was confusion. These guys aren't going to be as good as the guys that you're going to compete with in Europe and Japan. But we're going to throw so many different guys at you that you're never going to get a chance to settle in to a certain style or a certain
Yeah.
grip. You're always going to have to change. And we did that. I took that system. My brother started out doing personal training with him, doing strength and conditioning. So my brother would do strength and conditioning, and I would do like the technical training.
Yeah.
And we just went with that system and got him strong, got his wind up. We really, with the randuri, and then we started having success. He started throwing people again, and then he actually made the second Olympic team. COVID messed us up a little bit. I
Yeah.
thought we were peaking at the prime time for COVID. He fought in the Montreal Grand Prix the year before the Olympics, and I think he was at his best right then. And then all of a sudden, COVID came in, and it kind of just shut us down. And then we had to scramble and regroup and things like that. But that was our system. Our system was I wanted 6 throws, I wanted different grips, and we wanted him in the best condition he could be in. And that was kind of what we did.
That's cool. That's neat. And, it. I mean, it must be like an honor too to get that question because he's working with Olympic caliber athletes, Olympic coaches, national coaches. But you know what? Screw you guys. I want to go work with my dad. And it's like, wow, that just must be awesome to get that call. Like you said, you felt for him, but man, it must just must have been an honor for you to do as well.
Yeah, I mean, I got a great relationship with him, and that was one of my problems because I couldn't push him as hard as I wanted to push him because I didn't want to damage the father-son
Yeah.
relationship. I had a great relationship with my dad, and my dad was incredible. So I always that was more important to me than him winning a medal, than him becoming some big
Yeah.
judo guy.
Right.
Screw that. I want to make sure that me and my son are tight.
Yeah.
And I was able to find that balance. So I couldn't push him as much, regardless of what he says. He says I pushed him hard. I held back some. I held back a bit. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, it was good, great for me. Great to, what it was? I knew his judo very well because I only kind of taught him things that I knew well. So it was kind of like a mirror to my judo. Like my favorite throw, Sasai. His favorite throw, Sasai. And I wanted him to move from Sasai to Osoto to Haraigoshi. I wanted, something where he didn't have to change grips and he could float from one throw to the next throw to the next throw.
Yeah.
And, to be honest with you, I think if we would have had a coach that really appreciated his style, because he had the overhand grip style, more of a European style. And the guys he was working with, Mike Swain, Jimmy Pedro, they have more of the lapel sleeve grip. That's their thing.
Right.
And he wasn't used to that. So what they did for him, though, they kind of forced him to fight that style, and that helped him. That helped him. That helped him where he could fight from the inside or the outside.
Yeah.
But I do believe if we had someone that appreciated that outside grip, I think we would have done a little better. And that's not taking anything away from Pedro or Swain or San Jose State. No, those guys were fantastic, 100%. They were in his corner 100%. So far as and even right today, Jimmy and the guys up there are fantastic.
Yeah, right. To take a couple steps back, I don't I don't think I asked, but you started judo at 14. Who got you into judo back at the beginning?
So when I started judo, it was the kind of like the height of the karate and kung fu movie, Bruce Lee,
Yep.
and I was, this is 72, 73, and you'd be walking down the hallway in your school and you hear somebody yell, "Ah," and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden your books would go flying, you know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it was during that time. So I had no really clue what judo was. I just knew, man, I want to try some of this stuff. So after I got down there and said, man, it's similar to wrestling, and I had wrestled from when I was a kid,
Yeah.
so I was able to adapt pretty well.
So then, just what was it? A friend that got you introduced? Was it just you had passed it on your bike,
Yeah,
or
actually, it was a friend.
okay?
It was my friend's mother took me and him down to the school, and he never signed up. He didn't sign up. He went to some kung fu school
Ah. Uh-huh.
down in South
Uh-huh.
Jersey, but my parents weren't willing to drive me down there and do
Uh-huh.
that. So I would get on my bike and just ride over to Cranford.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was easy for me.
Right. Yeah, I know this
You
is not following any chronological order, so I apologize for being all over the place, but
know,
I
yeah.
just kind of the thoughts kind of come
Nah,
to
no
me.
problem.
You know, um, I'm
You
like you asked. I have a 2 year old, and I'm 43, so I started late, but I'm happy I did because I personally I would have not been ready for a child in my 20s. I don't know how well that would have went. Just my
know.
priorities were not where they were supposed to be. But since Olivia is my daughter's name, she has been coming to wrestling practices, coming to, I mean, almost every judo practice that I hold where I teach judo, but at a jiu-jitsu academy twice a week, Fridays and Saturdays. And Olivia has been with me since the beginning because my wife's work schedule, she works at the hospital at night on the weekends. So I have Olivia, and that was kind of part of the agreement originally. I said, I want to teach judo,
Mm,
and I definitely would be happy to do it here, but I got to have Olivia with me, and she's 6 months old. That's kind of the deal breaker for me. And they're like, yes, bring her with me. So
mm,
I feel very lucky, and I feel very fortunate that
mm,
that I've been at a place to where Olivia has been with me. And
mm,
I remember saying at the time, I'm going to look back at this and realize the times that she cried the whole practice, and I basically have to hold
mm.
her. And I mean, sometimes I would hold her in one arm, and I would say, okay, you got to grip here, you got to grip here. And I couldn't put her down, and I remember just being so thankful that people were patient with me and understanding, and now everybody is used to her, and the few times that she's not there, the first question is, where's Olivia, like what's she doing? But you know
Right.
I like the fact that I can get her around this environment now. If she chooses to do judo, great, but the fact that she is around people that are physically conscious, right, that are trying to exercise and improve their health, that's a good thing to instill in her. The mental side with the
Hmm.
discipline and the martial arts mentality is a good thing to be around. And like you said, just
Hmm.
so many nice people you meet through this. So, as you reflect
Hmm.
back, how did you feel as a father just initially getting Colton around, other martial artists and, kind of bringing them up on the mat a little bit? How do you feel about that and how important is that to you?
Well, I can. I'll start off by telling you a quick story. One time, we're on one of those. Went to Cranford for Ronduri. We're on our way over to New York. for some randuri. And he's maybe 16, maybe 15, 16, just really starting to get into it, starting to push himself, multiple practices. And I had a rough day on the job, and we're on the New Jersey Turnpike, and I'm driving, and I'm telling him about my day, and I'm like, man, I had a tough day today, and this happened and that happened, and he listened to me for maybe about 20 seconds, and then he looks over and he goes, hey, Dad, and he's taping his fingers up, getting ready for Anduri as he's doing this, as he's in the car, and he goes, hey, Dad, he goes, are you gonna cry all the way there? And I remember I sat back and I go, wow, like I don't complain much, man, but
Yeah.
damn, and that's the way he is. He is he don't like excuses. I think judo for anyone, I think you learn so many life lessons. I can make analogies all day long from judo and life, and how you're having a tough time today. And just like in randuri, those days that you really don't want to be there and you're going against a really good player, and then you get through it. And while you're going through it, you're like, man, I can't get anything going here. He's killing me. And then at the end of practice, you might get something. Or the following week, you might get something. Or you learned something from that match. And you may have to adjust your grip or adjust your stance or do a certain movement or a combination. And that plays into life. As we continue to go through life and have issues on our job, and have issues in our personal life, and have issues with our families, I think judo teaches you perseverance more than anything. It teaches you that things don't come easy. It takes a long time to learn judo. It teaches you that you have to have respect for people. It almost teaches you this guy that's kicking your butt right now, you've got a certain amount of respect for him.
Yeah, sure.
And almost appreciation for him. Because he's doing things, and he's doing them so smooth, he throws you and you don't even feel it. And you got to admire that, right? And I don't know areas where you can get your butt kicked like that.
Sure.
And have admiration for someone doing it, So I believe judo teaches you incredible. I mean, since he's opened his school, and I wasn't sure how that was going to go, because I always saw him as a selfish athlete. I did not see him as an athlete close to working with, training with other athletes. I saw him walk to the other side of the room. I remember it'd be like, when he's fighting in tournaments, and we're up in Canada, and maybe about 6 or 7 Americans over here. They weren't from his club, but they were from our country. And I'd slowly see him drift to the other side of the gym and be warming up by himself. And he'd have his headphones on. So I always looked at that like, well, why don't you warm up with the other guys over here? But I think he, if you didn't work hard, he didn't respect. Like, he respected, guys like Travis Stevens, guys that worked. His big belief is that if I work harder than you, I will win. Not always true, but you love golden score when that happens, because you've worked hard. So I used to love when golden score would come. All right. Except in the Olympics, when he fought Skank in the Olympics, and golden score came around there. Didn't work out too well for us. He hung in there pretty good, but guys, multi-world. He took second in the world, place like that. So the guy was very, very. So I think judo, as far as life, and I'm learning a lot more now that I'm helping out with the kids, and I'm seeing how, you get kids that come into you that can't even walk straight. They stumble when they walk. And then, a year or two later, they're winning tournaments. And we got kids that come through that may have a stuttering problem, and they build confidence, and they're down to that judo school every day. I believe every kid should have something, and that's what happened with my kid. His friends around town were much better athletes than him. They were football players, they were basketball players, but he had judo. So I believe every kid has to have something that he's better than the other kids at, so he can feel good about himself, essentially. If that took you down the road.
I was a school teacher for
I went down a
16
couple
years,
different
so
roads
you
with
know
that, but
I'm around kids, around parents. I teach kids and form good bonds with them. So I feel like I've had a lot of sons and daughters along the way. So it wasn't as big of a shock to me, and I was ready to have Olivia. Well, I mean, it's a long story. We weren't supposed to have kids, but we do. So it's blessing, fortunate, lucky, whatever you want to view it as. But it gives me a different perception about things. Like I want to have her be around people that have good nature, that have good morals, that have good standards, that are respectful, and I'm trying my best to kind of show her how to be a good person. I mean, she's only 2, so she's just kind of just seeing things,
right.
There
Right.
every once in a while she does come up and grab my leg, and I think that she's trying to take me down. Like that's what I think she's doing, and it's neat. And I'm like, okay.
That's the first sign.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Too, as a female, like I don't know. I'm a big believer in. I think that I think that females should have some toughness as well. Like I want them to be strong. I want them to to not be run over by people, and to be strong will, and you could use a word like a Valkyrie or something. Like I think it's important too for females to be like that, and her mom is definitely one. She's a tough, independent woman. She didn't do judo. She rode dirt bikes. She raced dirt bikes, and
Wow,
that takes a
that's
lot
tough.
of mental toughness. That takes a lot of physical toughness.
Oh, yeah.
So she's a strong, independent woman, and I want Olivia to do that as well, and to learn some self defense. In the meantime, maybe she might not do judo, but I could guarantee we're already starting to wrestle around a little bit now. Like we're gonna roughhouse. And she's going to at least be exposed to it, to a little bit of an extent, But I hope she's involved in either martial arts or wrestling or judo, something like that. Not to offend anybody, but I hope she didn't pick up the basketball.
Oh, I can tell you about my daughter, because Colton's got a younger sister,
Uh-huh.
2 years younger than him, and she was not she just wasn't in the sports when she was coming up. She played a little field hockey, but
Uh-huh.
never really in sports. And then as she got older, she gained some weight, and she decided she wanted to start working out and lose some weight. So she started boxing.
Mm.
I used to go out in the backyard with her, and we would box. And I always wanted her to be able to defend herself because she was a girl,
Yeah. Right.
And so we started out there. Then years later, like I said, she gained some weight, and she just lost about 60 pounds, and she started boxing.
Uh-huh.
And she went into she started just really kind of, doing like a boxing workout.
Yeah.
And then what happened is she says, Dad, I want to spar.
Uh-huh.
And she goes to one of these gyms outside of Philadelphia down here. And she's like probably the only girl in the gym, I think. And I go, all right, you want to spar? Okay, but keep your hands high.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Keep moving your head. I'm more about defense
Yeah.
for my daughter, And she started boxing, and she loved sparring more than anything. And she sends me these videos of her sparring these other guys, and he's hitting her, and they're hitting him.
Uh-huh.
Then she says, Dad, I want to go into a tournament. I'm going to go into the Golden Gloves.
Oh, wow.
But I was like, all right, I'll help get you in shape, right? So I did the same thing I did with Colton. I took her out to the soccer field, and we started doing sprints and things like that, and got her in condition, and she went into her first amateur fight. And like I said, it was she can handle herself pretty well. I feel sorry for the guy that grabs her. I can tell you that. They better know how to duck a right hand, otherwise they get a lot of problems. But yeah, so my daughter, nowadays, I don't think the guys are as gentlemanly as they used to be.
Sure. Yeah.
So I want to make sure my daughter can handle herself pretty well. So thank God she can.
Yeah, that's
but
neat. That's neat.
So I got a boxer and I got a judo player.
No, that's that's neat, man. I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank God, no pain.
Yeah, I mean, I was a PE teacher for 8 years. Is what I was 8 years as a PE teacher and 8 years as a special education teacher, and I enjoy both, and I like both, and I have pros and cons for both, and just for just a lot of reasons. I'm not in the education system teaching. I needed a break. I needed to get out for a little bit. Will I go back? Maybe. We'll see. But I'm kind of doing what I'm doing now, and I maybe you've maybe seen this as well. So when I coached wrestling, I pushed the kids real hard, and I love grappling. I love wrestling. I love judo. I'm very passionate about all of them, and is it my own fault? Maybe, because I was always worried about the kid that wasn't there. I was always worried that, why do these kids not like wrestling as much as I do? Why do they want to not come to practice here and there? Why do they not want to, hang out with their teammates? It's just whatever. Again, I kind of had that mindset as a head coach, and now that I'm teaching judo, I am 100% the opposite. Like, anybody that comes in the door, woo, thank you for coming to class. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to class, Oh, you don't want to do this drill? No, don't worry about it, Just do what you're comfortable with. And, so it's a lot, less stress teaching this way. Maybe, throughout the years of, maybe, when you've, coached certain individuals, have you ever kind of had that mindset to where you want perfection, you want 110% effort, and if it wasn't there, you felt upset, or maybe, now that you're older and you work with a lot of kids, has your mindset changed? Does some of this stuff kind of resonate with you or no?
Well, yeah, the greatest thing is you as a judo player, me as a judo player, we know how hard it is, right? We know how difficult it is. And we know judo is muscle memory. So the longer I could keep you on the mat, the better you're going to get. So in my world, that means what we do at our school, and I think Colton's got the best formula for it. We start off class with a game to have fun, warm the kids up, and to have fun. Then we work hard. Then we finish class with a game. So the last thing in their mind is fun.
Right.
Now, I believe in that system because I think the biggest problem with children is you can burn them out.
Right.
And the biggest problem with children are parents, especially parents that's never played judo before. Because the difference, and you may have parents that wrestled, but the difference between the two is judo takes much longer than wrestling. Okay. So I can show you a half Nelson today. I can show you cradle. I can show you different moves today.
Right.
You can do
Yeah.
them tomorrow. I show
Yeah.
you Ippon Sainagi today.
Yeah.
Talk to me
It's a good
next year.
point.
All right. So I believe because of that, we have to keep judo fun. There has to be a certain amount of games and fun in the middle of it. Otherwise, you'll have these kids and they'll be really, really good, and then you'll burn them out because you'll get too caught up in making them better as opposed to making them enjoy
Right.
this journey that they're on, and they're naturally going to
Right.
just get better. All right. So I don't have a problem with pulling back from kids, expecting too much for kids. I mean, the worst is if you got a kid that's got a lot of talent and he's not pushing himself to that
Yeah.
point. I understand that also, so you just try to keep it fun for the kids. You try to get them to work hard and you try to push them. And the longer they're in it,
Okay.
then I turn the
Yeah.
heat up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I work with a couple kids now.
Hmm.
I do private lessons with a couple kids,
Sure.
and they're not the most athletic kids. But I can tell you this: I owned my own businesses for over 25 years, and I used to take a lot of joy
Hmm.
in getting accounts, getting big
Yeah.
contracts.
Sure.
It was like winning a tournament, you know. And since I retired, I have incredible joy now
Hmm.
watching the kids develop, seeing that kid that wasn't that good, seeing a kid that we went down to the he went down to the US. It was the Nationals or one of the big tournaments in the country, and US Open I think it was, and he had gone down there 5 6 years in a row, and he never placed, and he
Yeah.
was always really close to placing. And I worked with him, and he's about 17, 16, 17. Matter of fact, it was his last time as a cadet. And I worked with him for probably about a year,
Hmm.
after practice and things like that. And I coached him through his matches at the Open. And he took first place.
Oh yeah.
And that felt so good. I mean, literally,
Hmm.
God, it was like my own child. It was like my own kid doing well, and I felt so good for him and so good for his family. And it was incredible. So incredible feeling. So since I retired, um, I get incredible joy out of helping these kids. They write you these little letters at times. Christmas comes around, they give you that Christmas card, you know. So incredible, incredible feeling helping kids and helping kids succeed. Not just not just win tournaments. When you see these kids coming in, and like I say, you got kids that'll never be that good. But as long as they get a little bit better, that's the key. Everybody wants their kids to be champions. You should be satisfied with your kid being better when he leaves than when he walked in. He's able to now do this move that he couldn't do a month ago. That, the small things, I look for that. I don't need the big wins. I believe in that small win, and you just keep moving. You just keep moving forward. That's just like Colton's school. Colton started this school 3 years ago. My Our goal was, believe it or not, was, if we get 3 new people a month, we get 3 new signups a month, Dad. That's the goal. If we get 5, that's good.
Yeah.
We had 5 yesterday. I had 5 in my class yesterday, new signups.
It's
So
insane.
he's got over 500 people now. So where if we would have stuck to our guns you know, in our plans, what's that? What's that? 36 a year,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Triple, quadruple that. We've already blown out of one space. We had to knock a wall down, and
Yeah.
we're now getting ready to blow out of our current space. So so yeah, it's like I said, I get a lot of joy. And I'll tell you another thing, and I'm not sure if you noticed. I just found out the other day, my wife sent me a text that USA Judo every year, at the end of the year,
Yep.
they pick the number one school for the year. They pick the number one
Yep.
referee, and they pick the number one instructor. He got awarded number one
Yeah, I
instructor
saw that.
for 2025 in USA Judo. And I was very surprised because I had never even
Right.
heard about the award before, to be honest with you. But then I wasn't surprised. I've been to a lot of schools,
Oh
and the
yeah.
one thing he's got is passion.
Sure.
And the one thing he's always had is passion. I can remember, you know, we didn't have
No.
funding back in those days when
Yeah.
he was traveling all around the place. You know, I had to dig a little deep to get some money
Sure.
together to
Of course.
support him and to support this dream. And I can remember nights, you know, where I'd be in my bedroom and our patio was beneath our bedroom, right? Outside the window there. And I'd hear like tick, 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 tick. 10, 11 o'clock at night,
Mm.
he's out there jumping rope on the patio. So I never hesitated from putting my house up, getting a loan so I could help support him in his journey because of the amount, the
Yeah.
effort that he put into it. That was the key. And that's the same
Yeah.
effort he's putting into his school right now. I see now, I thought I had a selfish kid. I thought this kid comes home every day, he takes a nap when he comes home from school. Like, who takes
Yeah.
a nap when they come home
Yeah.
from school?
Uh-huh.
What the hell's that about? You're lazy, right? I watch him now working 16 hours a day. I watch him at his school now, 6 a.m. in the morning, and sometimes
Right.
he ain't leaving
Yeah.
till 10 and 11 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, man. But I attribute it
Yeah.
to his
Sure.
judo training. The same, you know, the same amount that he put into his career
Mm-hmm.
as an athlete, he's putting into
Yeah.
building his school, building judo players, and helping them. You know, I had no clue his school would be where it's at right
Right.
now. No clue.
Right. You know, the
You know?
I mean the his school, the Colton Brown Training Center, is absolutely a diamond in the rough, and it is, kind of on a different trajectory than judo as a whole in the United States for a long time. And I've brought this up quite a bit, and I'd like to get your perspective. So, forever, judo has been known as an activity that is supposed to be basically given away for free, right? You have judo clubs. Still, I mean, the majority of judo clubs right now are nonprofit, or they just keep enough money to have the lights on. The instructor is either making no money or sometimes paying money to keep the school open. He has a full time job, or maybe he is a retiree. But there are several clubs now, but it's a very small percentage that are, charging what they're supposed to be charging. And people are able to, make a living now from judo clubs. But again, it's a very small percentage. What's your stance on that as far as, the judo been basically given away for free, and the race to the bottom, and to just give the cheapest price you can or not even charge people to come in, and taking it more into a business perspective, like Colton is doing, and he's able to make a living, and that's what he does full time, and it is a business. What's some of your thoughts on some of those perspectives as far as business wise and judo been given away for free?
Well, my first thought is everybody needs to get down on their hands and knees and thank BJJ first, then thank UFC for the popularity that it's brought. All right. Like I said, years ago, Cranford, Yanni, Mr. UNESCO, he was one of the few guys that made money. I used to go to tournaments and I'd see other schools and instructors, and they were frumpy looking, old clothes. They didn't care how they dressed. UNESCO, he wore $1,500 suits.
Really?
He drove Cadillacs, Jaguars. He owned his own building. He had a tremendous business, and he was one of the best teachers. He put everything he had into that. I believe that if you're the right person and you have the right formula and you have, most importantly, the passion, you can make money in the sport. All right. There's no reason that you have to work two jobs and, you're running your dojo out of a church back room, and no. But I'm not going to say it's easy, but if you have the passion for it and you have a name and you have the right location, we're up the street from a huge elementary school and a high school. Matter of fact, the principal of the elementary school is a judo player, black belt judo player. Yeah, I'm not saying, he's advertising for us or he's, I don't even know him that well, to be honest with you. I don't see him that often, but I know he's a black belt. But I think that, like I said, right now, because of BJJ, because of grappling arts, because of what you're doing, what Shintaro's doing with guys like that, the fact that we have a judo school and we also have BJJ, right? So what happens now is you get guys that come in from BJJ, that's all they know. And then they look at this judo and say, hey,
Yeah.
I want to try that out. Right? Because grappling is grappling, right? Whether it's standing, whether it's on the ground. If you're a ground BJJ guy, guess what? It'll help your BJJ by being able to throw people. If you're a judo guy, specifically now that they've changed some of these rules and they got a 5-second Yuko, you're going to benefit from that groundwork. In the olden days in judo, we never did any groundwork. You'd get on the ground and they'd stand you up. You'd just clam up and they'd stand you up. You wanted to throw everybody.
Yes.
Well, the game's changed now. And I think that, again, it's much easier to get better on the ground than it is standing. Some people may disagree, but again, I'll show you a ground move and we can do it in a couple days. I show you a standing throw. Good luck. Timing's got to be there. Everything's got to be there. So, so I think that, if you have a good product, you should charge for it. Period. Now BJJ guys, they get a lot more money. And it's because of the popularity of it. And because when you turn on the TV, that's all you see. So, but I think there's room for that formula of, if you've got a judo school and you have BJJ in there, you're going to get that crossover. which is helping build our sport. That's the goal. The goal for Colton is to make judo more popular.
Right.
That's his goal. From the door, that was his goal.
This episode is sponsored by Danro Judo. Danro Judo is a trademark with decades of tradition and experience in the development and production of high-quality martial arts gear. Founded in 1936 and becoming part of Quan in 1997, Quan USA is the exclusive and official Danro dealer in the country. Danro carries products that are International Judo Federation recognized for the highest competitors in the sport and is the ideal gi for training and competition. Danro products are available for sale online at www.danrousa.com. Danro is DANRHOUSA and arrive to most places in the U.S. within 3 to 4 business days. Also, as of right now, I am a wholesaler for Quan USA and Danro. From now until the end of January 2026, you can get 25% off of all judo products on danrousa.com if you use the code COLE25. That's COLE, C-O-L-E, the number 25. If you enter this at checkout, you're going to get 25% off. If this is beyond January 2026, you can contact me directly, Cole Stanley, and I can get you 10% off of anything in the martial arts catalog for Danro and QuanUSA.com. Thank you.
So that's what every judo player should want.
Yeah, no, I agree. A couple of things that I'm doing, right? Obviously, the podcast, making videos on YouTube. I've been, for the last, not so much right now because I concentrated on opening the dojo, but for the last year I've been traveling and teaching, I've been calling it judo for jiu-jitsu, right? I've been going around and teaching, some pretty basic judo and more along the lines, for the most part, of not the high elevation throws as I call them. I've been teaching things like Tani Otoshi, or maybe some sort of rear trip, and some things from like a seatbelt grip. And I've been going around and teaching that at the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools around the state, and a couple different opportunities outside of the state as well. But centrally, I would say that the main purpose of this is to get some more eyes on judo and to have somebody that's maybe into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but to take judo as an influence to get a little bit better on their feet. And some of the stuff I do is wrestling centric, because I coached wrestling for a while. But the thing is too, and one thing that I think is important, and maybe we can get this as kind of your last perspective on things, so I don't keep you around all day, is when you look back at judo and you saw what Kano taught, and you see what judo was in the 1970s and 80s and 90s, with leg attacks and more time on the ground and more emphasis on submissions back in the day, and the rules of judo have kind of taken away some of that. And you could think of it as old school judo, or you could think of it as a hybrid to where I include leg attacks. I talk about guard. I talk about keeping someone in side control and working a submission from there. But I also talk about pinning, and we talk about judo and what the current rule system is. But judo as a whole is a lot more than that. It's a lot more than what the current Olympic rules set by the IJF kind of promotes. So what's kind of your opinion on that as far as judo taught as to the rule set, or judo taught to grappling as a whole, or just teaching grappling instead of just specifically judo?
Yeah, I mean, again, I wrestled, I played judo. I've never really done BJJ. I mean, we did ground, newaza, obviously, in judo where there's arm bars and chokes and things like that. From old school judo, it's kind of weird, I watched them go from Koka to Yuko to Wazari to Ippon to just Wazari to Ippon, then to Yuko, Wazari, Ippon, which I don't even know what a Yuko is now. You land on your stomach,
Sure.
you get a Yuko.
Yeah.
I think there's a major problem with that. I believe it's a beautiful sport, right? So I believe there are different times of your life, right? I'm now involved. We have a class now what we call old man judo.
Yeah. I wish I would have stayed for that too, but just because of my scheduling, I ended up not. But I wanted to go to that. So
Yeah, well, we've been having it for a few years now, and I just started myself about a month ago.
mm.
And I had a guy come to me one time and say, "Hey, Jeff, how come you don't go to old man judo? And I go, "Well, because I ain't an old man, you know." So, so the guy went and told his dad that, who goes to old man judo, right? The guy brought it up to me. So I finally, about a month or so ago, I started playing, and I joined the old man judo class, and one day they're showing kata.
Okay.
Next day they're showing, different gripping and different things like that. So I think there's different stages in your life, right? I think there's that beginner stage where you're a kid and you play soccer and you play football and you just want to try some judo, and that's mixed in. And then I think there's a competitive stage where you're around 14 and you really get that itch and you want to start competing. Then it's about throwing, right? It's about developing one strong throw to the front, one strong throw to the rear, couple little throws mixed in there, and good transition on the ground, right? And then you pass that, and then you start getting into your 30s and 40s. And then I think you start looking at judo differently, right? You want to learn a little bit more. You maybe want to do more kata. You may want to, not just concentrate on these 4 or 5 throws that you've been doing for the last 10 years. So I think there's stages in our lives where we want to get involved, but we're looking for different things at that point in our life.
Mm-hmm.
The old man judo class that I'm in now is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The guys are great. I had a lot of fun playing. I played yesterday. I played some under yesterday. It was a lot of fun for me, and I didn't get all banged up.
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean, it's difficult. I like what judo does as far as constantly changing rules to try to make it more exciting, to try to make it fair. I don't think they always hit the note, though. I'm not going to say that I agree with everything they do, but they try. And again, I think judo's a sport. Again, you get out what you put in. In my stage right now, I'm just trying to be a better instructor. All right, for the kids, right? So I'm paying a little bit more attention what you said. I'm trying to break the throws down so I could become a better instructor.
Sure.
All right. So that's the stage I'm at now. And old man judo is helping me do that, actually. So it's a constant in judo, in like life. You should try to just keep getting better, growing, and that's the essence of that sport, I
Awesome.
believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Sensei Brown, obviously, first of all, thank you so much for setting aside some time. I just, you know,
No problem.
with there's a lot of avenues and reasons, why I do these interviews. One is to meet people, to collaborate, to network, to just meet the few, because judo is small in the United States, and yes, I interview wrestlers and jiu-jitsu players and sambo players, but I always find myself kind of gravitating more towards the wrestlers. The other reason I do it is to become a better instructor, to become more fluent in judo, to understand judo, to get different perspectives, and then to also the third thing is to
Mm-hmm.
hear the life stories of people. I just like human stories. I like things that people go through. I like hearing it from them firsthand, and to just kind of I just like human stories. So of course, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. The last thing that I want
Yep.
to ask you that we'll end with today, within this almost 50 years of being involved in judo, what do you feel has been a constant in judo over this 50 years? What is something that you saw in 1973 that you also see today, and how important is that you do see some of the same things that you saw back then as you do now?
Yeah, it's just work. Judo is there's no shortcuts. There's no secret formulas. The constant that I saw back in the 70s that I see to today is work. Is from a competitive standpoint, if you want to be a competitor, um, whoever works the hardest. I believe that. My son believes it. I believe it. I don't know if he got it from me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I always like to say, if I'm competing against you and you're working out 4 days a week and I'm working out 6 days a week, I should beat you.
Yeah.
And if I can't, there's something going on there. So the constant I see in judo is just nothing has changed in that sport. Um, it's just gripping, closing the space, throwing. Who's the better gripper? Who's got the better technique? And now when you get in the competition, obviously there's a lot going on in your head. So you can have guys. I knew guys that are really good in the gym, and they get in the competition and they lose it.
Yeah,
Right. So
sure.
you have to be able to calm yourself.
Yeah, of
But
course.
from constants in judo, just hard work, man.
Yeah.
It's from my days of the 70s to the days here. I see that has never changed. You got to throw. You're trying to throw him with everything you got. He's trying to throw you with everything you got.
Hmm.
You get tired. I get tired. Now we're gonna see.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. So, just in closing, just say anything you want to end with, any topic that we didn't cover that you really itch that you wanted to talk about, or anything you want to say to me or anybody listening, sir.
Nah, I'll say to all the dads out there. All right. Um, don't push your kids to the point that you wouldn't want to be pushed. And understand that this is a very tough sport. It's a difficult sport. As a matter of fact, we got a thing at our place. All parents of judo players, get a week free
Hmm.
just so you can experience it.
Yeah.
Worst thing in the world is to see a parent on the sideline screaming at his kid and he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So,
I'm very aware of that.
as far as I'm concerned, I'll leave it there.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well,
Cool.
have a great rest of your day, sir. Again, I really appreciate the time, and
Yeah.
this is awesome. And like I said at the beginning, that you and I've said this to Colton too, that the positive energy really radiates off you, and it's a breath of fresh air, and when you're around people like yourself, you can't help but just get infected by it, and to smile and to just feel good. So
Good.
just thank you so
No
much.
problem, man. I appreciate the time and I wish you luck in the future. And
Thank you, sir.
I wish you and your daughter luck. Hopefully, maybe one of these days I'll be at one of these tournaments and see you and her competing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I want to try to come back up, to Colton's at some point. I mean, it was. I tell people two things that it was awesome, and I felt very welcomed, and everybody was nice, but it was tough. I mean, it was tough physically, and it was tough mentally, and I got pushed very hard, like I haven't been pushed in a long time, and while it was, part of me goes back to, the days to where. And again, I just kind of did local, regional stuff, but I tried to do my best. I tried to win. I tried for that Ippon, and on certain practices when I didn't get nothing but Ippones, I got frustrated with myself, and I kind of went back to those days, and I kind of hung my head a little bit after that first night of Rondori, saying, "Wow, man! After 25 years, like I can't even get one throw off. What is going on?" But I changed my gear and went back in the second night and just said, you know what? I'm just gonna have fun, and like you said, just respect everyone and just take them throwing me as a thing of respect, instead of kind of like I did something wrong, or
Yep.
like I don't know what I'm doing. If
No,
that made
I'm
any
with you.
sense.
I'm with you, my friend. I hear you. All right.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sensei Brown. I'll be in touch. I'll send you
Okay.
links to this. Obviously, encourage people to listen. I hope you enjoy it, and yeah, if anybody in the club wants to listen to our conversation, we spread by word of mouth. So any way that you could help me, I
Sounds
would be
good,
more
man. I
than more
appreciate
than
you and
thankful
what you
and
guys like
appreciative,
you are
sir.
doing for the sport by getting that out there. Just giving that exposure. A lot of people don't know what judo is, so you guys like you guy. I know Shintaro's got that. He's got a podcast too. So all you podcasters, and I really don't listen to them a lot. I'm a little older, so I hate computers and phones. I think they're, but I'm not going to go down that road. But I appreciate you guys. So it was good talking to you today. All right. Take care. You too, man.